It's Tuesday, October the 7th, 2025, and this is Denison Forum's Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrator, voicing today's daily article, authored by cultural theologian Dr. Jim Denison. Negotiations began in Egypt yesterday to finalize a deal based on President Trump's Gaza ceasefire plan. The talks are expected to last a few days, with a focus on a proposed hostage for prisoner swap. The negotiations began on the eve of one of the most tragic anniversaries in Jewish history. Hamas's surprise attack on October the 7th, 2023, is considered the deadliest and most brutal terrorist assault in Israel's history. Hamas is celebrating today's anniversary as a glorious day in a message calling the invading terrorists heroes. Lest we forget, these quote-unquote heroes killed 1,195 people, including 815 civilians. Evidence and autopsies later revealed widespread sexual violence, with dozens of Israeli women raped, sexually abused, or mutilated. In addition, the terrorists took 251 hostages. Here's what we know about them. 146 have been freed or rescued, while 83 have been confirmed killed. 37 were under the age of 18, 8 were 81 years of age or older. 51 were women, some of whom were starved, intimidated, and threatened by armed men. 13 women and 2 men who survived captivity said they experienced or witnessed sexual violence while held in Gaza. About 20 living hostages remain captive in desperate conditions, according to Israeli officials, and about 25 more are believed to have died, but their bodies have not been returned. Why did Hamas take them 2 years ago? The answers are not only relevant to peace in the Middle East, but a window into human nature. According to the British Policy Institute Chatham House, Hamas took hostages on October the 7th for 5 reasons. 1. To be used as human shields in the face of Israel's counterattack. 2. As an insurance policy and bargaining chip as the conflict evolved. 3. To create media opportunities for Hamas and an ability to control the narrative. 4. To draw other countries into the conflict, given the multinational nature of the hostage group, inflicting harm not just on Israel, but on some of its closest allies. And 5, to generate terror, shaking the foundation of life for many Israelis. Hostage-taking by Israel's enemies is nothing new. Palestinian terrorists have taken Israeli hostages numerous times. In some cases, a few Israelis were swapped for thousands of Palestinian prisoners. The calculus behind the taking of Jewish hostages is worth contemplating on this tragic anniversary. The Quran describes in chapter 5, verse 60, chapter 2, verse 65, and chapter 7, verse 166, the Jewish people as, quote, apes and swine. Hamas further claims that Jewish people were behind World War I and World War II, among other global conflicts and revolutions. The terrorists are, in fact, convinced that the Jewish people are from the Latin hostis humani generis, the enemy of humankind itself. Such dehumanization of others is always the first step to their mistreatment. The ancient Romans saw themselves as a superior civilization and believed conquering and assimilating other people into their empire was best for those they subjugated. Many European explorers characterized the indigenous people they encountered in the New World as an inferior race and culture, paving the way for the theft of their tribal lands. Many who supported the enslavement of Africans similarly considered them intellectually and morally inferior to whites, convincing themselves that Africans were better off as their slaves. In Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, he famously observed that in nature there are typically more offspring produced than can survive, creating a competition for limited resources in which the fittest tend to prevail. We don't need to adopt his bias against religion or larger biological theory to recognize this principle as a basic fact of human psychology and culture. Our will to power, the fallen drive to be our own God from Genesis 3 verse 5, operates a zero-sum equation. For me to win, you must lose. If Hamas can blame Israelis for all the Palestinians' problems, they can justify unleashing their basest sinful instincts to oppress their oppressors and advance their people and cause. This calculus is by no means limited to terrorists in the Middle East. In fact, every crime against another person is a version of such denigration and commodification. We see this across the biological spectrum, from aborting unwanted babies to euthanizing the infirm and elderly. At the National Prayer Breakfast in 1994, Mother Teresa warned, "Any country that accepts abortion is not teaching its people to love one another, but to use any violence to get what they want." End quote. If I see you as my equal, created in God's image as I am, and equally loved by our Father, it will be difficult for me to lie to you, steal from you, and otherwise harm you. But my fallen nature wants to denigrate and commodify you so I can see you as a means to my ends. I have known ministers who said, perhaps only half in jest, that they love pastoring churches. It was dealing with the church members that was the problem. Even now, I am tempted to write this article to impress you rather than to serve you. As I noted yesterday, you and I are typically persuaded by ideas that appeal to our self-interest. So let's close with a biblical argument for sacrificial service that does just that. Our all-knowing, all-loving Father has a plan for our lives that is better than ours, according to Jeremiah 29, verse 11, and Romans 12, verse 2. From Ephesians 5:18 and Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6, we learn that when we submit to His Spirit each day, He will lead us onto this path and empower us to walk it faithfully. One consequence or fruit of the Spirit's operation in our lives, according to Galatians 5, verse 22, and John 13, verses 34 and 35, is love, the selfless desire to serve others at our personal expense. From Matthew 25, verse 40, we know that when we serve those who cannot serve us, we serve Jesus Himself. And serving Jesus is the key to significance in this life, established by Colossians 3, verses 23 and 24, and the joy of your master in eternity, found in Matthew 25, verses 21 and 23. To paraphrase my youth minister's question, if you were put on trial for being submitted to the Holy Spirit, would there be enough evidence to convict you? When a conversation about faith comes your way, will you be ready? It might happen at work, in a casual chat with a neighbor, or when a friend shares what they believe. In that moment, you don't get to choose the topic, but you can be ready with the truth. That's why Dr. Jim Denison wrote Biblical Insight to Tough Questions, Volume 8. This book explains 9 major world religions and alternative belief systems like Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Mormonism, and more. You'll learn how each compares with Christianity and how you can engage clearly, lovingly, and biblically with those who follow them. We'll send you a copy of Biblical Insight to Tough Questions, Volume 8, to say thanks for your donation to help keep this daily article podcast going strong and equipping you and others with biblical clarity and truth in a confusing world. So please, act today. Visit supportdf.org to help more believers think clearly, live faithfully, and follow Jesus with courage. That's support, the letter D, the letter F, .org. Find the link to give in today's podcast episode notes and receive your copy of Biblical Insight to Tough Questions, Volume 8.